You were told health starts in your gut, but if you're a woman, it all starts with your hormones. When your hormones are off, everything is off, including digestive issues, mood, mental clarity, energy levels, weight management, and so much more. As the new year approaches, imagine hitting refresh and supporting your body with optimal hormone balance. Hormone Harmony is a game changer for women struggling with hormonal imbalances that leave them exhausted both physically and mentally. It only contains science-backed ingredients that bring back comfort, energy, clarity, confidence, and a sense of balance. Perfect for enjoying the holidays and heading into the new year energized. Happy Mammoth, the company that produces Hormone Harmony, is famous for its zero-compromise policy. No GMOs, artificial fillers or flavors, or any other junk. Only science-backed ingredients in amounts that are clinically proven. The company surveyed almost 2,000 women to see how Hormone Harmony helped them, and the results are mind-blowing. 86% of women started losing weight, 77% said it improved their mood, and 100% said they were feeling like themselves again. And on top of that, Hormone Harmony has over 50,000 raving reviews from women all over the world, with 98% of them saying they'd gladly recommend it to their friends and family. This holiday season, give yourself or the women in your life the gift of wellness. For a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code MurderDiaries at checkout. You could try Hormone Harmony risk-free and get 15% off your first order with code MurderDiaries at checkout.
Do you ever wish you could show your dog just how obsessed you are with them? You actually can by giving them something to obsess over: their food. Ollie makes fresh, human-grade meals tailored to your pup's unique needs, and their recipes are made with real meat, fruits, and veggies. No fillers, no weird stuff, just the good things your dog deserves. And when your pup eats better, they feel better, so they'll have the energy to live their best life right alongside you. Ollie also offers on-demand health screenings, so you can easily check in with the Ollie Health team and get peace of mind on your dog's well-being. Go to ollie.com/BFF and use code BFF to get 60% off your first box. That's OLLIE.com/BFF. The best food for your best friend.
Disney's Lilo & Stitch has finally landed on Disney+. Now you can watch the global phenomenon at home with your Ohana.
Be good for 1 second.
Lilo & Stitch is verified hot on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 93%.
Perfect.
Stitch is also cute and fluffy.
Disney's Lilo & Stitch, rated PG, now streaming on Disney+. And right now, you can get Disney+, Hulu, and all of ESPN with an incredible limited-time offer. Terms apply.
Welcome back to the Murder Diaries. We've been talking a lot recently about our feed, both on Unscripted and the Murder Diaries, and how Unscripted is going to be moving to its own feed come January. However, after some consideration and some important details on the business side of things, we are not going to be moving Unscripted to its own feed, at least not yet. It's not off the table for the future, but for the time being, you can tune in for the normal true crime case coverage you began listening for every Thursday still, and check out, if you aren't already listening, to Unscripted on Mondays, this same feed. We have a lot more coming in 2026, so stay tuned. With all that said, I'm Paige.
And I'm Natalie.
In late March of 2018, loved ones of 31-year-old Jennifer Myers were shocked and devastated to learn that she died from a gunshot wound. Initial reports and investigation led police to arrest and charge 64-year-old Randy Williams with Jen's murder. But just a few days later, he was released and the charge was dropped. Shortly after, Jen's autopsy results came back, labeling her manner of death as suicide. Her family refuses to accept the ruling. Despite surveillance footage, a strange 911 call, and a barrage of lies, Jen's case remains closed and ruled as a suicide. Here at the Murder Diaries, we call cases like this suspicious deaths. This is her story.
Used to think it's in my head, but I'm walking with the dead.
Jennifer Myers, better known to friends and family as Jen, was born on December 17th, 1986, to mother Nanette Myers. Nanette was originally from the Philippines and moved to the U.S. in the late 70s, ultimately settling in California. Jen grew up in Los Angeles County with her mother and her older sister, Jacqueline. The two girls were 4 years and 4 days apart exactly, and Jen really took her role as the younger sister seriously. Jacqueline told the TV show, Still a Mystery, that Jen was always involved in everything she was doing. She was a typical little sister who just wanted to be around her big sis. Nanette said that her youngest daughter was super loving and just a happy person to be around. She was generous and kind and would do anything for her friends and family. Jen's aunt and Nanette's sister, Kit, echoed those sentiments. She said that Jen was really bubbly and outgoing. Everyone who knew Jen said that she was someone they could count on. In 2007, Jen moved from California to Las Vegas, Nevada, and got married. She and her husband ended up having 2 children, a boy and a girl. Jen felt like she had everything that she'd ever dreamed of. To those who knew her, it seemed like Jen was made to be a mother. She loved her kids more than anything and did everything she could to make sure that they had the best life. She was involved and supportive and incredibly loving. It was obvious to everyone around that Jen felt like she'd found her purpose as a mother. Unfortunately, Jen's fairy tale family life came to a screeching halt when she found out that her husband had been having an extramarital affair. The discovery that her husband had been cheating was bad enough, but Jen's heart was shattered when she also learned that he'd gotten the other woman pregnant. Jen was absolutely devastated. Jen's mother, aunt, and sister all openly told Still a Mystery that she'd struggled mentally after finding out about her husband's secret life. Jen thought he'd loved her, so her world was understandably completely turned upside down. In 2010, the couple divorced and Jen's mental health continued to deteriorate. Her now ex-husband got full custody of their 2 children. Though Jen obviously didn't want to be away from her son and daughter, her Aunt Kit said that Jen trusted her ex-husband with them. Jen wanted to take care of herself and work on getting better mentally before regaining custody of her children. It was an impossible sacrifice for her to make, but Jen, as always, did what she felt was best for her kids. After the divorce, Jen moved back to California to be near her family. Her ex-husband and children stayed in Nevada. Jen talked to her kids every day and made every effort she could to visit them as often as possible. In a Facebook post from Jen's page in late November of 2014, she wrote, "So I guess tomorrow's moving day. Not gonna lie, my heart hurts. A lot of horrible memories, but also a lot of great happy memories. Regardless, they're all going to be forever remembered." Her family said that she was working on herself and rebuilding her life after her marriage exploded. In 2014, 28-year-old Jen even found love again. She had reconnected with her high school sweetheart, Jimmy. After dating all those years prior, the two lost touch, but now they were both older and in different phases of their life. The two began spending time together again and rekindled their romance. She felt like it was meant to be, now that she'd begun healing from her first marriage. The couple moved from California to Wheat Ridge, Colorado, just a few minutes down the road from Denver. Jen started working as an overnight stalker at a wholesale club. It certainly seemed like things were finally starting to look up, that she was on her way to finding happiness again. This feeling was solidified in November of 2017 when Jimmy proposed to her. Jen, of course, said yes and was so incredibly excited that they had found their way back to each other. Jen's Aunt Kit said that besides having her 2 children, the day that Jimmy proposed to her was the happiest day of Jen's life. She couldn't wait to get her kids back with her and start building their new family.
According to Jen's family, she really felt hopeful. Her social media posts about being heartbroken and feeling like she couldn't trust anyone dwindled. She posted more and more photos of her and Jimmy, along with countless pictures of her kids. One picture stood out. Jen with a huge smile on her face, holding her left hand up and showing off her new engagement ring to the camera.
Jen's family, especially her mother Nanette, was thankful to see Jen moving in a good direction and feeling so positive about her future. That's why Jen, being in trouble, was so far from her mind when she was visiting Las Vegas to celebrate a family member's birthday in late March of 2018. Nanette recalled her cell phone just kept ringing over and over again. She didn't want to pick it up, but finally, she gave in and answered it. One of Jen's friends was on the other line. She told Nanette that something had happened and that she thought Jen was gone and that she'd died. Nanette's heart stopped. Her phone fell out of her hand and she immediately became inconsolable. Nanette told the friend that they were wrong, that there was no way her daughter was dead. She quickly notified other family members, hoping that someone had spoken to Jen or that they could clear up whatever this misunderstanding must be. Nanette's brother-in-law spoke to a Wheat Ridge police detective who confirmed their worst fear. Jen, then 31 years old, had been shot, and they needed Nanette in Colorado to identify the body. The next day, Nanette and Jen's Aunt Kit flew to Colorado, both in denial. Jen couldn't possibly be dead. How could she have ended up being shot? None of it made any sense. Nanette couldn't handle what was happening, understandably, so Kit knew it was up to her to be strong for both of them. When they arrived, their worst fears were confirmed. Jen was dead. While Jen's family tried to grapple with her being gone, the Wheat Ridge detectives were establishing a timeline of the events leading up to her death. On Friday, March 30th, 2018, Jen arrived at a Wheat Ridge bar called T-Birds around 3 p.m. One of her coworkers bartended there part-time, so it made sense that Jen may have wanted to pop in there, say hi to her coworker, and grab a drink. One of the managers stopped serving Jen around 6 p.m. and asked her to leave. Some of the people at the bar said that Jen was really drunk and just kind of all over the place. There are some unsubstantiated reports that Jen was trying to take her shirt off and was flirting with men at the bar. However, again, these are just rumors and are completely unsubstantiated. Jen's sister Jacqueline told Still a Mystery that one of the waitresses told her that Jen had only 2 beers that night. According to Jacqueline, Jen was a bit of a drinker, so 2 beers wouldn't have gotten her as drunk as people were describing. It just didn't make sense. Witnesses also said that when Jen was told she needed to leave, she was insistent that she could drive herself home. The bar manager felt that she was much too intoxicated to be driving, so he called the police and a cab for Jen. However, the manager canceled both calls when one of the bar regulars, 64-year-old Randy William, volunteered to drive Jen home. Randy was friends with the owner of the bar, so no one was surprised when he offered to help out. Jacqueline later said that people from the bar told her it wasn't unusual for Randy to take someone home from the bar when they'd had too much to drink. Apparently, he did it all the time. This was hard for Jacqueline to understand, though. She didn't really see how this could be a thing, especially when it came to females that Randy didn't know. Apparently, Jen was quite confused by all this too, because she refused to relinquish her keys, but Randy used his truck to block her car in the outside parking lot. She must have realized that resisting was futile, so she gave in and got in Randall's truck. However, instead of taking Jen home as promised, Randy took her to his own house. Security camera footage from the adjoining residence shows Randy and Jen both arriving at his home. Randy later told police that the two had a couple of drinks, then consensual sex. He told them that after this, Jen wanted a cigarette, so Randy offered to go get some from the nearby gas station. Surveillance footage showed him and his vehicle leaving the driveway at 11 p.m. He returned about 11:09 p.m. At 11:21 p.m., Randy placed a 911 call. He told the dispatcher that he'd brought a girl over to his house and that they'd had sex and he left to go get cigarettes, but when he got back, he found her on the floor in his bedroom, bleeding all over the place. The dispatcher asked Randy where the woman was bleeding from. He responded, "As far as I can tell, from her shoulders up, from her head, I think. I don't know if she fell and hit herself or what, but she's bleeding pretty bad." EMS arrived shortly after the call was placed. Paramedics had no issue determining what had happened, that the bleeding was not from a fall, but from a gunshot wound to the head. They found her nude, covered in her own blood. Unfortunately, it was clear that Jen was beyond help. Paramedics pronounced her deceased on scene.
Nothing about the information that detectives discovered made any sense to Jen's family. The 911 call was particularly strange. They couldn't understand why Randy hadn't said anything about a gunshot wound. Aunt Kit told Still a Mystery that when medics arrived, without even entering the bedroom, they could see that half of Jen's face was gone. It didn't seem like there was any question as to what caused Jen's injury.
In the early morning hours of March 31st, Randy was taken into police custody while detectives began investigating his story and looking through the neighbors' surveillance footage. When Randy returned home from buying cigarettes at 11:09 p.m., the footage showed him walking back into his house. A few seconds later, a gunshot was heard. However, 12 more minutes passed before Randy's 911 call. During those 12 minutes, footage showed Randy walking out of the house twice, once at 11:11 p.m. and again at 11:15 p.m. On the second trip, Randy is seen carrying 2 rifle cases away from the home. Investigators photographed the scene and began processing evidence. There was no gun inside the home, but there was a shell casing near Jen's body. This left detectives with an important question. Had Randy moved the gun that shot Jen, and if so, why? Wheat Ridge police immediately began questioning Randy. They asked him if he'd heard a gunshot, either when he left to get cigarettes or when he returned to his home. He said that he'd never heard a gunshot or anything that even sounded like a gunshot. Jen's sister Jacqueline later commented that it made absolutely no sense that he wouldn't have heard a gunshot while being in such close range. We know from previous cases that there are silencers that can make it so even those very nearby can't hear, just like in the recent case we covered of Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge, where the man in the truck that was nearby didn't hear a single gunshot. That being said, it of course should be questioned whether Randy really hadn't heard anything or had anything to do with it. Despite investigators telling Randy what they'd found, he stuck to his initial story of saying that he thought Jen had a head injury from a fall. He told police, "When I walked in there, all I seen was blood on her head. Where she was laying was like a step, about a 6 to 8 inch step down landing where my bed is. So, I mean, if you're not paying attention, it's easy to take a tumble. I have before myself, sober." Detectives told him that there was absolutely no way she'd fallen, that she was unequivocally killed by a gunshot wound to the head. Randy's response was, "News to me." When asked if he owned any guns, Randy said he didn't. He explained that he used to own several, but that he gave them to his son 8 or 10 years ago because his son still hunts. He also denied moving any rifle cases or guns from his home that night. Investigators obviously disagreed and pulled up the footage from his neighbor's security cameras and showed him what they were referring to. His first response to the footage was, "I have no idea who that is." Detectives were at a minimum frustrated that Randy was continuing to deny having moved any rifle cases, despite the surveillance footage that showed him doing just that. They went on to argue to Randy that the footage they showed him clearly depicted him a few minutes after the gunshot was heard, carrying rifle cases out of the house. The investigators had absolutely no doubt that it was Randy on that footage. Randy said, "Oh, I won't argue that, but I don't know what I'm carrying there. They don't look like cases. They don't look like anything." Police asked Randy one more time if he had any guns in the house. Again, he said that there weren't. However, during the interview, detectives received confirmation that the rifle used to shoot Jen was found by a fence on Randy's property. Detectives relayed the news to Randy, telling him that it was a scope rifle with a sling and that it had been found over a fence to the west on his property. Randy said, "Okay, they found a rifle, but it wasn't his." He repeated to detectives that he had given all of his guns to his son years ago. Despite Randy continuing to deny any involvement with any guns or rifle cases that night, police later found the rifle cases that he'd been seen carrying in the footage hidden in a workshop shed, also on his property. Detectives tried to help Randy along. They tried to give him a few scenarios that might have ended in him shooting Jen. Not excusing it, but they were trying to give him the opportunity to admit what they thought that he had done. They asked if they'd gotten into an argument or if they'd been having sex and Jen wanted to stop and that made him mad. Had she demanded he take her home when he returned from the store with cigarettes? Randy said no to all of them and claimed that when he got back, she was lying on the floor of his bedroom with blood in her hair and on the carpet. They asked him if Jen told him that she'd never agreed to sex with him and threatened to call police, but Randy continued to deny any of their proposed theories. Later that morning, Randy was arrested on suspicion of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and tampering with physical evidence.
Though none of what they'd learned was helping them process Jen's death, it did give them some peace of mind to know that the person responsible for her murder was now in custody. Unfortunately, that peace of mind was going to be short-lived. When we started this podcast, I thought the hardest part would be telling tough stories with care. But the real plot twist is suddenly having to master branding, tech, scheduling, and approximately 1,000 decisions I'd never even heard of, which is why I totally get why so many creators lean on Shopify. It's the calm, streamlined business partner that cuts through the chaos so you can actually focus on the story, not the tangled mess behind the scenes. Shopify powers millions of businesses worldwide, and they drive 10% of all U.S. e-commerce. From major brands like Hailey Bieber's Rhode to those just getting started. You can build your own design studio with hundreds of ready-made templates that let you create a polished online store that fits your brand. You can also speed up content creation with built-in AI tools that write product descriptions, craft headlines, and even enhance product photos. You can reach customers everywhere with easy email and social tools that make marketing feel like you've got a full team behind you. And best of all, Shopify brings world-class expertise to everything, from inventory and international shipping and returns and more. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/murderdiaries. Go to shopify.com/murderdiaries, shopify.com/murderdiaries.
Not long after Randy's arrest, Jen's family learned that the investigation was far from over. In fact, police were considering the possibility that Jen might not have been a victim of homicide, that she actually may have died by suicide. The lead detective on Jen's case told her family that they believed Jen had sat on the edge of the bed and shot herself with the rifle. When her family asked how she would have managed to pull the trigger like that on her own, the detectives told them that they believed she used her toes. How did detectives go from believing that Jen was murdered, potentially by Randy, to believing that she completed suicide? Jacqueline believes that this all started when detectives spoke with Jen's ex-husband. He informed them that she had a history of depression and had attempted suicide once before. Jacqueline confirms that this was true, but Jen hadn't been in that state of mind for quite some time. Her Aunt Kit said that Jen's ex-husband fails to mention here that the cause of her depression was finding out about his extramarital affair and the fact that he'd gotten the woman pregnant. Jen was about to receive a promotion at work. She'd just gotten engaged and was on track to getting her children to Colorado to live with her and Jimmy. She was going to finally have the family and life that she'd always dreamed of. For those who knew Jen, there was no way that she would willingly end her own life. She was just not in the same headspace as she was when she attempted before. On April 2nd, Dr. John Carver, a forensic pathologist in Jefferson County, conducted the autopsy on Jen's body. He noted a, quote, contact range rifle wound on the head, with the entrance being on the undersurface of the chin with soot deposition. The exit was center of the face / bridge of nose. Jen's tox screen showed a blood ethanol level of 111 milligrams, which would be equivalent to a BAC of 0.1. It also showed a blood cocaine of 280 nanograms, which is considered low. Jen's family said that she didn't use cocaine, but those who knew Randy alleged that he often did. Autopsy photos that were posted to the Justice for Jen Facebook page show bruising on her hands, upper arms, and legs. It's unknown exactly what caused these bruises or when they were made. Dr. Carver finalized his autopsy report with the cause of death being a contact range rifle wound of the head. He listed the manner of death as suicide. Police recreations of the scene led them to the same conclusion. Investigators said that from the time that Randy was seen entering the home to the time of the gunshot, there wasn't enough time for him to have gotten to Jen and shot her. The police department said that forensic evidence from the crime scene also supported death by suicide. Forensic investigators reported that the DNA profile on the rifle and the trigger matched Jen. On the rifle case, there were 3 DNA profiles found on the latches. One of the profiles belonged to Jen. None of this information changed the minds of Jen's family, though. Aunt Kit told Still a Mystery that she believes whoever did this to Jen made sure that her DNA was everywhere. And look, that wouldn't be the first time that's happened in a case. She said if someone shot themselves, the gun should be nearby. However, they'll never know where the gun is that killed Jen because Randy hid it. If Jen really did shoot herself, why would Randy hide that gun? Nanette couldn't understand the detective's assumption that Jen used her toes to pull the trigger. She said that her daughter had been wearing socks. Because of that, she questions how easily Jen would have been able to even pull the trigger with socks on.
On April 6th, a week after Jen's death, Randy was released from Jefferson County Jail. The district attorney declined to file murder charges, but did proceed with the charge of tampering with evidence. Randy took a plea deal and was sentenced to a year in jail. He ultimately served less than 3 months of his sentence and moved out of state following his release.
Jen's family was heartbroken when they found out that the murder charge against Randy had been dropped. They had so many questions, and there were still so many things about Randy's story and law enforcement's account of what happened that just didn't make sense. On the Justice for Jen Facebook page, there are several pages of the Wheat Ridge Police Department's case reports. Areas of the reports are highlighted to signify the concerns that Jen's family has about statements that were made. One report reads that the officer spoke to Randy on scene, who was sitting in the back of a patrol car at the time. The report says, Randy told me he did not know her name and that he had just met her in the bar that night. And then she said that she wanted to go back to his place and he took her home to his house. I went back into the house to see if I could find a purse or an ID of some sort. I didn't find a purse or wallet. A photo of the bedroom scene is posted underneath the report that has a black purse circled, seemingly belonging to Jen. This purse was out in the open, so it makes sense why her family would be questioning why the officer either A, didn't see it, or B, did see it and put on the report that he didn't. Another page of the reports reads, there is no internal trauma or signs of strangulation. A photo is also posted underneath that report from Jen's autopsy that shows red markings on her neck. It is unknown what caused these marks, but she had marks on her neck that show possible strangulation. On the same document, it's reported what was found out during detectives' questioning of Jimmy, Jen's fiancé. He's referred to as James in the report. He was at work. Jen called and said that she was at the house and had a couple beers. She asked him if she thinks she should go see Megan at T-Birds. James could tell that she wanted to go and get out of the house. James told me that normally Jen would not go to a bar by herself, but she knew Megan from work. Megan is also a bartender at T-Birds. After work, James was going to pick up his son, and Jen was supposed to be home when he got home. Jen texts James pictures of her and Megan together. Jen with a picture of Blue Moon, Jen with the bartender, and Jen holding a dog. James deleted these photos because at the time when he couldn't get a hold of Jen, he thought she was having an affair. The rest of Jimmy's interview explained that Jen called him around 6 p.m. and that she sounded intoxicated. Jimmy told her to just get an Uber or Lyft and come home. He said that he could tell by the sound of her voice Jen wanted to come home. He called her again around 7 p.m., but there was no answer. Jen's car wasn't at home, so he then drove to T-Birds and found her car in the lot, but Jen wasn't inside. Jimmy went back home and called his mom, telling her that he thought Jen might be having an affair. He went to bed, hoping that Jen would be home soon. When he woke up, she still wasn't home. The report also includes more details about Randy's account to police. It reads, Randy had blood on his hands from her. He told me this is from when he kneeled down and was talking to her and asked, are you all right? Randy told me he thought it was a head injury and alcohol working together. I was able to observe he also had blood on his left shoe and left knee and pant. Randy also had what appeared to be a fresh cut on the back of his right upper arm. One major question that Jen's family has is why Randy continued to say that he thought Jen had fallen. Based on what the first responders found, it seems to be obvious that Jen had been shot in the face. One police report reads, Corporal Payne went inside the house. He located a female laying on the floor of the bedroom. She was completely naked and laying on her back. Her head was close to the bed and was covered in blood, and the top left quarter of her face/head was a gaping, bloody hole. There was blood all over the floor around her, and there was human tissue and teeth scattered around the room. He did not see a gun anywhere in the room, but there was a black plastic rifle case on the ground close to the female. The latches to the case were undone, but the case was closed. Inside the case was a large amount of blood, human tissue, and a tooth, indicating the case was open at the time of the shot. Another responding officer described Jen's presentation as the female had a massive open wound to her face that was bloody. The wound was so large that it disfigured her face in a way that it would make it difficult to identify her. From those descriptions, I'm sure you all listening can agree with me that it seems very odd that Randy would mistakenly believe Jen had suffered from a fall. Additionally, Randy told police that he was an experienced EMT, that he had ridden on an ambulance for 10 years, so that's how he knew he needed to call EMS immediately. However, this seems to put even more emphasis on this question: how did a supposedly experienced EMT not recognize a gunshot wound? And regardless of what he thought happened, why did he wait 12 minutes to call EMS? Why did he waste valuable time removing rifle cases from the house rather than trying to assist Jen? Another officer who had been with Randy after he was brought to the police station wrote, Randy made an observation about people working night shift and told me to see all her blood, it didn't affect me at all. While waiting for the blood draw, Randy stated, "I guess sometimes it's just not worth a piece of ass to go home with, you know?" Another report references the EMS crew's observations, reading, "The male," which is Randy, "followed behind the medic team, insisting they go inside first and directed them to the back bedroom. The male was still calmly petting his dog. Medics found the body in the room with a wound to the head. The body was clearly deceased. Given that the male acted so calm and the information he provided, medics were concerned for their own safety and exited the home. They called for WRPD to respond. When asked to clarify, the paramedic told me something was not adding up and it was unsafe to be there." Jen's family wonders if someone else might have been present when Jen was shot, perhaps someone other than Randy. They wonder if the owner of the neighboring house that had the surveillance footage didn't share all of the footage, if there could possibly be more footage showing someone else entering the home. Jacqueline told Stella Mystery that when she asked the lead detective on her sister's case why they didn't perform a rape kit on Jen's body, the detectives told her that Jen wasn't here to claim rape, and Randy said it was consensual, so the rape test would be irrelevant. I have a feeling a lot of you listening, as well as myself, beg to differ.
There were so many inconsistencies, so many things that needed to be dug further into before detectives ruled Jen's death a suicide. The police reports brought even more questions forward. If the rifle case on scene was open when the shot was fired, how did it end up closed when the officers arrived on scene? What caused the wound on Randy's arm? What caused all the marks on Jen's body? There were so many things lingering that just didn't fit in with the detective's story.
One of the biggest pieces of the investigation that has never made sense to Jen's family is Randy's 911 call. When the 911 call taker spoke to Randy, he asked him if the woman was still conscious. Randy said that she was conscious. She was mumbling, not talking very good. He added that they'd been drinking a lot that night. At one point during the call, you can hear what sounds like Jen in the background, gurgling and moaning. The call taker asked if that was the woman in the background. He asked Randy if he could get near her to see where the blood was coming from, but got no response. For about 45 seconds, the call taker continued to ask questions, but got no response from Randy. Finally, Randy responds and said that he wasn't with her, that he was out on the street. He explained that it wasn't very well lit out there and he wanted to make sure that the responders came to the right address. He later told police that he didn't get good service inside his house. Randy told the call taker again that the woman was conscious and breathing and moving a little bit, that she was coherent. This, along with the pathologist's assessment of Jen's injury and the smeared blood in the bedroom, led investigators to believe that Jen's injuries hadn't killed her immediately. This finding was just another dagger to the family's heart. Unfortunately, despite all of the unanswered questions that remain around Jen's death, her case is still closed. Jen's fiancé, Jimmy, told Denver 7 News that not knowing is the hardest thing to live with. Nobody knows exactly what happened that night. The only person that knows is Randy, and I feel like he's going to say what he has to protect himself. Jen's family remains steadfast in their belief of several things. They insist Jen wouldn't have cheated on her fiancé, especially because of what happened to her in her first marriage. She knew how it felt. There was no way she would betray her fiancé in that way, especially for some random man in a bar who was twice her age. Her family is also confident that Jen wouldn't have willingly left her 2 children. She was so excited to start her new family and bring the kids to Colorado. There wasn't anything that would have kept her from them. Jimmy went on to tell Denver 7 News, "We had a lot of plans, and all those plans, I believe Jennifer would have never done anything to jeopardize that." Aunt Kit, who runs the Justice for Jen Facebook page, told Denver 7 News that they wouldn't accept law enforcement's account of that night. She was a mother of 2, just engaged, just promoted. She had a lot to live for. Jimmy said that though his heart was completely shattered, he was still standing and still fighting for answers. He kept Jen's last words to him in his mind. "The last words she said to me was that she loved me and that she was on her way home." Jen's big sister Jacqueline told Stella Mystery that she and Jen were doing what all sisters do sometimes, arguing just before she died. Quote, "When all this happened, we were in one of our arguments, but this time I didn't get a chance to make up with her. She was taken away thinking I was still mad at her. I hate that I was robbed of that." If you have any information about the death of Jennifer Myers in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, please contact the Wheat Ridge Police Department or Jen's family at the Justice for Jen Facebook page.
That's it for this week's case coverage, but be sure to tune in next Monday for our unscripted pop culture segment, and then again next Thursday for another true crime case coverage. You can find us on social media at the Murder Diaries Pod. We're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. If you search for us, you'll find us. Until then,
Stay safe.
bye.